A campaign is underfoot, as I said, to change the way laws are written in the state of Victoria. Bonnie Logan, a 23-year-old law student, wants every reference to he on the statute books replaced with they. Now, why? Because anything less than the so-called gender-neutral legislation, she says, is sexist. For his insight on this, my regular Words Matter segment, let's bring in our resident wordsmith here on Credlin, author and broadcaster Kel Richards. Kel, talk to me about they.
Okay, it's a little bit complicated. For a start, we can ignore Bonnie Logan because she clearly has the IQ of a sea anemone. I mean, this idea that you go back to old laws written decades ago, 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago, and replace he with they is just nonsense. They actually go back to decades when he meant humanity. So just going back and doing all that rewriting of laws is just nuts. So we can ignore her. There are also the WWs, you know, the weirdly woke, and the PPC, the pathetically politically correct. They have got weird reasons for making they the second person singular. But at the risk of shocking people who know that I'm a card-carrying member of the NUP, the National Union of Pedants, linguistically, if you ignore all the stupid things that the loony left are saying, there are good linguistic reasons for occasionally using they as the second person singular. And it's to do with history. Mm-hmm. It's to do with what's happened to pronouns in history. Take the second person. We're talking about the third person. The second person, you, the singular and the plural used to be different. For the singular, we used to say thou. Now, thou died out hundreds of years ago. It came into English in the 13th century, in the 1200s. It lasted through until about the 16th century. And then linguists don't know why, but it just died out very quickly. The last major work to contain thou in large numbers was the King James Bible, which came out in 1612. And that was because the scholars putting that together were actually drawing mainly on earlier books. So that mainly on William Tyndale, it came from the reign of Henry VIII, which is why it's full of thous at a time when thou was dying out of the English language. You, the plural form, now represents both plural and single in the second person. So there's a linguistic history there. And there's no reason why, on occasions when it feels appropriate, we should not use they as the third person singular. I'll give you an example. If you want to say, if someone won lotto, they should consult an investment advisor. Okay? Now, you could say he or she, but I think he or she is clumsy and they is simple. So you could use they in that kind of sentence to mean the third person singular. Now, you are going to be flooded with emails about this. All the purists out there say, Kel, you've deserted our ranks, you're giving up on us. But no, I think language is a living thing. The English language is living. And I think this is a possible change. The change actually started long before the woke and the politically correct ever got involved with their nutty reasons. The difficulty for us now, particularly those of us who are conservative and want to save the English language and everything that's good in our culture, is we're now being given these nutty left-wing reasons for doing it. So our instinct is to say, no, they've got to be wrong. They've got to be wrong. But strangely enough, it's not a bad change as long as you ignore the stupid reasons. Does that make any sense there,
I tell you what,
Peter?
That does to me, and I'm sure it'll do, make sense to my viewers, but I'm listening to you, second person singular, first person plurals, all of the grammar language. I reckon there's only an audience out there over the age of 40, perhaps if I'm kind, that will even follow a conversation like this. Or what's going to happen? I mean, we don't teach this stuff anymore. What's going to happen to language when we have dumbed down the curriculum so much that people don't even understand the very basics?
People can't work with language if they don't have the tools to work with language. You need to learn There are a number of younger people who said to me they actually learnt parts of speech and pronouns and prepositions and the rest when they learned a second language, because they suddenly had to learn the mechanics of the English language in order to learn a second language. Mm-hmm. So that says something terribly wrong is happening in our high schools, in our primary schools. I mean, we knew about subjects and predicates, Peter, when we were in primary school, didn't we? You started off high school knowing something about how to
I learned about
a
a subordinate clause in primary school. A subordinate clause in primary school. Goodness me.
Yes, I said to someone
we could talk about this all night, Kel. We'll come back to it next week.
Okay, talk to you then.
All right.